Okay, so I've decided to just do a quick video on what I think about Legion specific rules. I think just to start with, I'm not a huge... I do like them as I do like flavor, but I don't think they were the right way to do it. I think they would have been better suited by things you paid points for. That way it would actually balance. As it stands now, each Legion has a rule that costs nothing to them. And then vastly different in like actual quality and what they do. I think just if they just had like some things, essentially like all the unique units they'd have and shit, which would be later on. Like we didn't have to have rules straight away. Just give them unique units, unique things would make sense to like, or give each of them the formation. Like make a tailor-make a singular formation that only they would use, and then only they have access to it. Doing things like that, but it's fine. We're currently in this state of the game with these, and I guess, yeah. And some of them are really neat. I do like them. I tend to find the ones which sort of encourage you to make an army around sort of a theme, like encourage you to use a certain type of unit or build like formations in certain ways. I sort of like those because they do like make things more fluffy, more thematic and stuff. And then there's a bunch where sort of like don't do any of that and it's not that good or just don't work out for time. But yeah, so we'll start with the Dark Angels, who are the Black Marines if I recall correctly. They're no longer green. Well, they have yet to become green. Yeah, so basically the Dark Angels have a special rule. So if you have a formation that has at least 3 different detachment types, you're in the wrong transports, so essentially a combined arms force, you can choose to give a special rule to certain types. For example, you can make all infantries have fast bricks implacable, all cavalry get outflank, or all vehicles get nimble. So I do like this one. It's like play combined arms. And technically their special rules don't benefit the entire formation, just like a portion of it. But to get it, you do have to pay the combined arms tax. That's kind of neat. I like that. We have the 3rd Legion, Emperor's Children, who are the Purple Marines. So these ones, I actually really like the special rule to a point. I think it is potentially broken. And in a way it could be thematic, but it doesn't really do anything to make you build a certain way. Actually, technically I think it would be as a way to potentially build an army around this rule that makes most of it. I guess we'll find out eventually. But basically it means you can just win the initiative. You can just choose to win the initiative once per game. It's a powerful ability that happens once per game. And if you're just an allied detachment of them, so instead of just winning, you can choose to reroll. So you might win. And that's also once per game. Then we have the Iron Warriors, who are the silver, or iron colored Marines rather. They basically have a ability. Essentially, all their infantry and walkers have 1 extra tactical strength when trying to take objectives, like in general. And if their objective marker is in their deployment zone, they get +2. So it's, in a way, it's kind of defensive, but also sort of it encourages sort of lots of infantry, lots of walkers. And so I think it does sort of work with the thematic, like a more siege way, as they're good at taking objectives. So it encourages some defensive siege play with their objective stuff, assuming the actual game mode has objectives in the deployment zone, as well as just makes them good at taking objectives for a bunch of infantry walkers. Just like very, it does work quite well for sieging, so I do like this one. And then you have White Scars, the White Marines. These guys, they basically, all the units with Jink get +1 to it. So like a Jink 6+ becomes a Jink 5+. Which is why that'd be really good if you want to build a White Scar, just get the box with all jet bikes and stuff in it. Because they all have Jink. And you get that, some aircraft when they eventually release them, and you're golden. Yeah, because I think it's actually a really good ability, and basically assuming you use enough units for Jink, it's like really good. But basically, for example, for just the regular bikers and jet bikers, the Jink becomes the armor save, so no matter what they have a 5+ save. So yeah, it's pretty good. And does again encourages more like a jet bike, like a more bikey army, as well as a bunch of aircraft. Then we have the Space Wolves, who I think are grey. This is one of the ones with sort of like, it's an interesting rule. Essentially, you can't infiltrate within 16 inches of a special model, so I think it's a double. Usually it's 8, I believe, off the top of my head. And yeah, and the same with, so outflank units cannot be deployed with an 8. So outflank normally have no restriction, but it gives them that restriction. So it's kind of, unless it's arriving around battlefield edge, it's kind of interesting, like, so they can detect things before they show up, so you can't really be stealthy against them. But then it only works if your opponent is using outflank or infiltrate. If they're not, so for example, if they're not an auxiliary player using pioneer detachments, or they're not a legion who can infiltrate, or using the jet bike detachment, it's useless. It does nothing. And yeah, so effectively, so this is sort of my issue with the whole thing, like, you're paying for something which might not work. Well, you're not actually paying for it. You might be. It might sort of be incorporated in the cost, but I don't think it is, honestly. You've got the Yellow Marines, the Imperial Fists. These ones, I kind of like this. It's, when you have infantry that first fire, there's a bunch of weapons list, which I think is most weapons infantry you can have. Currently, we don't have all layers cannons, autocannons, or heavy bolters, or plasma cannons on infantry. They basically gain accurate, so they can reroll misses. It's kind of neat, actually. I think in the current game, though, it does mean you basically want to spam a ton of missile launchers, which are also just really, really good. And you only get, which is kind of hard to do because of how few you get in the box, but it's still kind of neat. Sort of encourages lots of defensive play with infantry. And we have Night Lords, who are the Blue Marines. These guys have a kind of interesting special rule. Essentially, if you destroy an enemy HQ, each enemy detachment within 4 inches of it takes wounds equal to the wound amount of the model times 3. And the hits is automatically wounds, basically, and they're saved on your morale, which I think is really cool. It's very thematic, and it's an ability that's potentially good, and it's always going to be effective in a game unless you're playing against Space Marines who only run tank detachments. Then you won't have commanders to kill. And even then, killing commanders usually would mean killing an entire detachment. So it's hard to pull off, but it's kind of cool and thematic when it does. So I do like this one. Then we have Blood Rangers, the Red Marines. And they have basically, if they win a combat, if they're not engaged, so if it's not multi-combat, they can move up 3 inches. And they can re-engage things, and if that thing hasn't fought in combat, they'll fight another combat, which is kind of cool. And they did put the caveat that they cannot embark on garrison structure, which basically means balances it out and makes it's all about fighting in combat, not actually sort of reconsolidating after combat, which is kind of a neat thing to put in. Then we have Iron Hands, which I think is silvery black, I think. So when they have models with Feel No Pain, instead of only working on light weapons, they also work on light AT as well. And then another thing I kind of like is their vehicles, when they're issued with first fire and haven't fired yet. They basically, the things firing against them are 1 worse AP. Which kind of protects you, because usually when you first fire things, you usually really want them to fire first. Like actually take out something important before they get taken out. And this means if the opponent has something that first farmer could take it out, it's going to be harder for him to do so, which I like it. And yeah, the first fight order has to be an effect, so if they're overwatched and goes away, like, it doesn't work. World Eaters are kind of cool. They basically can reroll a single d6 for magnify rolls. So it basically encourages you to play close combat orientated, which is magic and kind of neat. We have the Ultra Smurfs, the other Blue Marines. I also forgot to mention World Eaters are white. Yeah, so the Ultramarines basically, if a unit from a formation is firing upon another unit that has been hit by another unit in the same formation, they can reroll ones, hit rolls of ones. So it sort of encourages you to each formation to sort of focus on a few targets rather than split and fire. Which I don't know how thematic that is, as I'm not that familiar with Ultramarine lore and stuff, but it's still a neat ability, I actually don't mind it. Gift Guard. So they have two parts effectively. The first one is they do not suffer hits for moving from dangerous terrain, which is kind of cool. And in addition, they can designate 2 areas of terrain to be dangerous terrain at the start of battle, which is also cool, so they can booby trap things, which don't affect them. In Thousand Suns, for the best Red Marines, they unfortunately have, so their commanders gain shield generator 6 plus. So shield generator basically means any model within 6 inches of a shield generator, including opponent's models, that gets fired upon by things outside of that 6 inches, gets a 6 plus, or the value in brackets involve save. Which in itself is a cool ability. Like the Palisade drop pods have a 5 plus for 32 points, and that's, I think, actually with a big enough drop pod detachment coming in, it's actually probably very much worth taking. It's a prediction, everything like transporting and the drop pods themselves from fire for a while. But my issue with this is it's 6 plus. I have not seen very many weapons with AP more than -1 against infantry. Like, it's probably only like Titan weapons. And technically it's vehicles as well. So melter weapons and like Titan weapons. Like, unless you have your commander protecting a bunch of tanks, and even then, majority of units will still have a save. So majority of the time your space marines getting fired at, your infantry for example, they're going to have at worst a 6 plus save. So this literally does nothing. And your vehicles should probably majority of the time have better than 6 plus. So it's absolutely pointless. Because I'm still building the army, but it's like, it's honestly, it's kind of cool. It's like, I do like the effect in a way, but it's just not very good. I would have rather they just gave the commanders like a psychic attack. I gave them like a short range missile, like a 8-inch range effect like a missile launcher has. So you essentially a multi-roll, like an anti-infantry attack and an anti-tank attack. You can do either or, like one or the other, each round sort of thing. Would have been cool. Or give them like force weapons. Like, essentially because the game currently doesn't have any psychers in it, which are the thing that would make Thousand Suns thematic. So just make all their commanders a psychic by just giving them an extra weapon profile. That would be fine. And make them pay points to it for if they have to. But hey, having Sons of Horus, I think are green, and I think at some point they're also white. Will they green and turn a different colour? Like, do they go black after that? Oh, I don't know. It's Lunar Wolves, right? And they become the Sons of Horus. So the Lunar Wolves are the white ones, right? I actually don't remember. So these, essentially they have an ability where if that issued with an advanced order, and it's firing at something within 6 inches of it, it can reroll whole hits of 1 when using light or light AT weapons. Which is kind of cool. Again, it's only when it's in fix. If they get rid of it to Overwatch, it doesn't work. Then again, Technically, I think that would work if you remove it as you Overwatch, so you wouldn't get rerolls if you Overwatch. I think. Which is probably why that thing's in effect. Yeah, I do like that, sort of encourage you to move and fire with a bunch of stuff. You have Worldeers with the Red Marines. They never count as broken, so basically if they'll always be able to be ordered given whatever order you can want, even if their formation is broken. And then they also ignore the Dread Aura effect. We have Salamanders with a green. They essentially can re-roll, instead of when they take a moral check, they can roll 2 dice and choose whatever result they want. So theoretically, if they wanted to fail something and they had a low roll, they could. It's kind of neat. It could be used to like fail purposely, at the same time it could just be used to pass more often. Then we have the Raven Guard, who have more Black Marines. So any formation that only has infantry models, game infantry, infiltrate special rule, unless they have transports. And then all detachments that contain only cavalry or walkers or infantry with dedicated transports gain forward deployment. Which is kind of neat. It sort of encourages, it's thematic in a way for infiltration, and then gives you a backup if you don't want to just run infantry without transports. Maybe even then infiltration has been insane actually. Just having like a Legion Demi company with a bunch of the support infantry options and just put them in the middle of the table. They're pretty good actually. Kind of like I really like a Pioneer detachment for Auxilia. And the last Legion, the Turquoise Marines, the Alpha Legion. Okay, so these guys have, it's interesting, they can effectively choose 3 detachments in the army, and each detachment may take a number of special rules. Essentially they choose one rule from a list, and flyers can't be chosen. So they can effectively take infiltrate our flank or full deployment. Okay, so if it is infantry, cavalry, walker, vehicle model, all models gain either this rule, otherwise they just gain forward deployment. So if you have, what else is there? Yes, I guess super heavy vehicles would only get forward deployment. But yeah, that is all the special rules. And thank you for coming and watching the video, and I will see you guys all next time with whatever else I decide to do next.